Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for a review of the new posthumous Prince album, Originals. This project is an old but newly released collection of songs from R&B and synth funk legend Prince. Even though there's probably a huge amount of songs in the now unlocked music vault of Prince, the amount of commercial leaks we've heard from it since his passing have been very few in number. We had last year's Piano and a Microphone 1983, which was a very short collection of bare piano and vocal performances from Prince himself that showcased the man's raw talent, a pretty low-risk venture commercially considering how stunning the performances on this thing are. And even if people don't care for it, most fans will most likely look at this record like it's a live album or something and just move on. Additionally, this project doesn't really leave an artistic blemish on Prince's legacy, which I think is very important to maintain, because putting an artist's previously unreleased music out there after their death is a lot like making a statement on their behalf, one that they may have structured in any number of ways had they been able to do it themselves. Thankfully, as a release, Originals is a pretty low-risk venture as well, as it features songs Prince had already released in other contexts, essentially writing these songs for other artists like Sheila E. or Kenny Rogers, musical ventures such as The Family, or girl groups that he was connected to at the time like Vanity 6 or Apollonia 6. So without a doubt, a great deal of hardcore Prince fans are familiar with most of these tracks, and even casual listeners will instantly recognize the Times Jungle Love or the Bangles' Manic Monday, and of course the track Nothing Compares to You, which Prince originally wrote for The Family, but then Sinead O'Connor blew the track up with her own version that was a major hit. So I guess you could argue in a way Prince has already ordained the release of these tracks. They've already seen varying degrees of success when released under the names of other artists. In that respect, I can't really deny how smart it is of Warner and NPG to come out with a collection of this type. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Anthony, just because these songs were released by other artists doesn't mean that Prince's versions are good or that the sound quality of them is ready for the public's critical ear. But no, being the perfectionist that Prince was, these demos were fully decked out instrumentally. And there are really only a few tracks on this thing I would dare call rough or even vaguely unfinished. The song Noon Rendezvous is pretty bare in its presentation of just vocals and piano, but it's still a really solid, beautiful song. Love Thy Will Be Done instrumentally is easily one of the more repetitive and basic cuts on here. Plus the vocal layering on the track is not all that well placed. It sounds like a bad Bon Iver mixing job. Dear Michelangelo has something off about it as well, sonically. It's like the vocals and the bass and the barely audible drums just kind of bleed into each other or just mix in this very odd way. It's very, very muddy, and there's something off-putting about the track Wouldn't You Love to Love Me as well. When orienting the track list on this project, the label definitely left some of the messier tracks toward the end. Generally, though, the material on this project sounds very, very good. It's not the high-gloss production of Purple Rain, but I think that's a bit of a high bar to set here. At the very least, the production on this record is on par with a great deal of the R&B and funk and synth pop coming out around this time. The original demo of You're My Love sounds nearly as good as the Kenny Rogers version, just with less reverb, less sheen. It's just not as dolled up. But still, every essential musical element in the song is clear as a bell. So not only are the writing and the performances on this thing so good, but it's interesting as a Prince fan to hear him produce tracks and sing in a style that maybe around the peak of his relevance, he wouldn't have engaged in some of this stuff on his own records because it could have been seen as just being out of character. These songs Jungle Love and 100 Miles Per Hour are fun, unapologetic funk party anthems. But lyrically and aesthetically, they're not really close enough to the vibe that Prince was typically putting out there in his music around that time. Also, the track Holly Rock, which was originally released by Sheila E., this song is a pretty early adopter of this funk rap blend. It's kind of amazing to hear Prince spitting bars over this funk instrumental with a flow that would typically be found on like a Curtis Blow record. I'm here and I'm trying to say everybody should have fun. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm just riffing. We also have a really jerky electro track with incredibly deadpan singing on the song Makeup. This track is not exactly the delivery that Prince was known for. Ultimately, it feels more like an artsy synth punk meditation than it does a Prince song. The opening track, Sex Shooter, is part of the chorus for the so raunchy it's almost novelty type songs that Prince would write for some of the girl groups he was working with at the time. For example, Vanity Six's Nasty Girl. I'm kind of sad that's not on here. I would absolutely kill! I would kill! To hear Prince singing those lyrics. I have to keep praising Sex Shooter though, because this song is a beautiful, catchy, inadvertently hypnagogic banger. It's a dusty, long-forgotten synth-funk gem. It's like something Ariel Pink would do, but with much more humor and sillier vocals. I'm not entirely sure what to make of Prince's intentions and his performance on the track You're My Love, because when the song originally came out on that Kenny Rogers record, he was credited for it with a pseudonym. What I can say is that Prince's singing on this track sounds as if he is trying to sing in Kenny Rogers' typical voice in his register. It certainly allows you to view Prince's songwriting ability, his artistry from a different angle, through a different lens. My biggest critique of this thing is that a handful of tracks toward the very end of this archival release are noticeably rougher in sound when comparing them to the tracks we're presented with in the very first half and the very first leg. It's not like the album slowly disintegrates in quality or anything. It's that, you know, toward the finish it just gets a little shaky. Though the landing is definitely stuck by placing the biggest of all of these songs, Nothing Compares to You, at the very finish. Still though, I think this project is great. It was a great listen. It was a fun listen. I'm very happy it came out. As somebody who has loved multiple Prince albums, thinks he is one of the greatest songwriters and instrumentalists and producers, this was a pretty significant release for me. It's definitely going to be one of my favorites of the year. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on this one. Transition, have you given this release a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is a video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Prince Originals forever.